Hi, thank you for watching Digging to China. I'm Dong Sheng. If you have not done so already, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you very much. Most of Apple's smartphones and tablets are assembled by contractors with factories in China. But in 2020, the company started asking them to look at moving some production to Southeast Asia or some other places. Why? Because China's snap COVID lockdowns disrupted its flow of products. Now it is official. Apple is to start making iPhone 14s in India. Apple said in a statement on Monday, September 27, "We are excited to be manufacturing iPhone 14 in India." Apple has not released the details, but news reports say Apple also plans to set up assembly of tablet computers and wireless earphones in Vietnam. Last year, Apple supplier Foxconn invested $1.5 billion in Vietnam. Vietnamese state media reported in August that the company had signed a $300 million agreement to expand its facility in the north of the country to increase production. For those foreign companies that are keeping or expanding manufacturing in China, they aim to serve the domestic market. In the meantime, they are shifting export-oriented work to other countries due to rising wages and other costs. Foreign executives are finding it difficult to visit China due to anti-COVID-19 travel restrictions. Yang Da Li is a political science professor in Chicago University who often writes on Chinese politics and economics. He said China was already paying a significant economic cost for zero COVID. China's positive GDP figures did not fully reflect the pain the country's economy was going through. Tourism has been decimated. A lot of the business requiring human contact have been severely impacted, and the employment rate is very high as well. It's all connected, said Professor Yang. Although public criticism of China's anti-COVID policy is rare, but Chinese think tank, the M-Bound Research Center, issued a report recently saying China's zero-COVID policy must change to prevent an economic stall. People who lose their businesses cannot pay their mortgages, which also causes contraction in the property sector, which has an impact on the market. It's actually very widespread, the report was later censored. Professor Yang said the uncertainty caused by lockdowns hanging over businesses and individuals was the most concerning part of zero COVID. He said, "Most people have recognized that zero COVID is actually very much a political commitment on the part of the current leadership in China." Apple has bet big on India. In 2017, Apple first began manufacturing its iPhone SE. Since then, Apple continued to assemble a number of iPhone models there. The India-produced iPhone 14s will be shipped out by Foxconn. Foxconn is a major iPhone assembler that has facilities on the outskirts of Chennai in southern India. By betting on India, Apple is also looking to increase its footprint in the country. As of last year, its market share was about 4% there. Apple has been struggling to compete with the much cheaper South Korean and Chinese smartphones that continued to dominate the Indian smartphone market. But manufacturing in India does not mean the phones will be cheaper in the country because of high import duties on components and other taxes. So while Indians might be looking at the Made in India tag on their iPhone, they will still have to pay a hefty sum to own it. The announcement that iPhone production has increased in India is a win for Prime Minister Modi's administration. His government launched its flagship Make in India campaign 8 years ago as it aimed to boost the country's manufacturing and exports. According to JP Morgan report, Apple is likely to shift about 5% of its iPhone 14 production to India from later this year, rising it to 25% by 2025. The analysts expect that nearly a quarter of all Apple products to be manufactured outside China by 2025. At this moment, only 5% is manufactured outside China. COVID-19 lockdowns will likely trigger more factory relocation efforts that will continue over the next 2 or 3 years, the report said. In order to contain the spread of the highly transmissible Omicron variant, this year, China has significantly tightened its COVID-19 policies. Even the death toll remains low. While public dissatisfaction has so far not been enough to compel the government to end the zero-COVID measures, it continued to grow. The same policies have been repeated over and over again in so many different places: in Wuhan in 2020, Shanghai earlier this year, and Chengdu last month. So people can't help but notice when the same thing happened again and again. While the economic pain is great, the most significant cost for China to sustain the policy is the ongoing humanitarian crisis. People's freedoms are restricted, and people's health and life are threatened by the policy. In early September, the Chinese public expressed shock after a bus carrying 47 people who live in a high-risk area in Guizhou overturned on its way to quarantine hotels, leaving 27 dead and 20 injured. 2 weeks before, people in a lockdown city in Sichuan province were reportedly trapped in their homes during a 6.8 magnitude earthquake. Shortages of food and access to medicine and other medical treatments have been reported repeatedly during the lockdowns in Shanghai, Sichuan, Xinjiang, and elsewhere. Professor Yang said the zero-COVID policy was a key issue for China's leaders. He predicted that even though public dissatisfaction was rising, there would be no major relaxation of the policy, at least in the short term. Many local governments probably would prefer not to do what they are doing, especially dragging people into quarantine in the depths of night, he said. The zero-COVID policy had emptied the coffers of many local governments and started to take its toll on the central government as well. Professor Yang suggested President Xi Jinping might declare victory in the battle against COVID before money runs dry. I agree. Xi Jinping had declared victory before, such as the abrupt crackdown on the tech sector and the after-class tutor business. Thank you for watching. Please leave a comment and subscribe to my channel. Just click the subscribe button right here. I'll see you again shortly. Until then, be well.